Okay, let's start. Okay, timer is set. ओके, क्या करना है? थोड़ा सा टाइम टेबल सेट कर लेते हैं। हम्म, क्या क्या करना है? बेसिकली प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट वाली पढ़ाई करनी है, और साइड में कुछ ग्रोथ का ना। ठीक है। हम्म। टाइम टेबल बना लेते हैं थोड़ा सा। लगा लेते हैं, चालू कर देते हैं। ओके, तो चलो ये वाला करते हैं। हाउ वुड यू इम्प्रूव इंस्टाग्राम स्टोरीज? ओके, प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन फ्रेमवर्क क्वेश्चंस स्टोरीज। ठीक है, ये वाला इम्प्रूव इंस्टाग्राम स्टोरीज। ओके, ओके, let's assume that the interviewer asked me, how would you improve Instagram stories? Okay. All right. So let me just collect a few thoughts regarding Instagram stories first as a product, understand what it is, and then we can jump into some clarifying questions and look at the users and the pain points. I'll collect. I'll structure down my thoughts. Just give me a couple of minutes to do that. Okay, so first of all, we will try to understand what is Instagram stories. Then we can look at some clarifying questions related to what is the scope, are there any constraints, and eventually what is the goal of the improvement. When we are talking about improving Instagram stories, what exactly do we want to do in terms of improving Instagram stories? Is it improving engagement, user acquisition, monetization, etc. Then we can also talk about the mission of the company and check if the goal is aligned with the mission of company. Cool. Once we are aligned with the goal, and okay, this is why we want to improve Instagram stories. Let's assume engagement. Then we can look at how can we improve the engagement in Instagram stories. That essentially means that we have to look at the users. We also have to look at the problem statements, or let's call it pain points. We'll list down, let's say, 3 pain points and come up with um, prioritization of 1 pain point. All right, cool. And then we can jump into the solutions for that particular pain point. We could also prioritize our solutions based on impact versus effort estimates, and then look at the success matrix. How is it? How can we track the improvement of Instagram stories? We can also discuss if there are any risks, and finally we can close the discussion with a summary of our with a recap or a summary of whatever we discussed. Okay, so let's begin with what is Instagram stories. So let me actually think for a while to understand what exactly is Instagram stories, and we can align whether we are actually on the same page. So thinking out loud, Instagram stories is a feature on the Instagram app. It is timed for 24 hours where a user can share updates to their followers. It is not sent to non-followers, if I understand correctly. So updates are not sent to non-followers. What else? I can do text, audio, video, um, text, audio, video formats. If there is nothing else, this is not live, so I'm just keeping scope. The live Instagram live out of the scope of stories is not in scope because I believe that is a different feature altogether. Um, okay, what else? User can share updates. Yes. User can send the updates. The other side is user can see the updates. Um, I can react. User can react to stories. It could be like, comment, share, etc. And even here, I can share anything such as reels, posts, as stories, even of other users, and I can react. I like, comment, share, even DM. So that's also included. All right. Okay. So I think this is my understanding of Instagram stories. Um, what do you think? Is this accurate enough to begin our discussion on how can we improve Instagram stories? Okay, sounds good. So, in terms of the scope, we are specifically talking about Instagram stories. We are not talking about live. I think all of the user segments are a part of this scope. So it would be basically the creators and uh, viewers. I would just name them, name the other segment as viewers. IG Live is not in scope. Um, anything related to reels or posts is also not in scope. Reels, posts, um, DMs are not in scope. Constraints, I assume that there are no constraints, so none here. And now let's talk about the goal. So what could be the different types of goals that we can think of while improving Instagram stories? So the first one is user acquisition. So I want to get new users. I want to get users to use stories. So that would be the first part of the funnel. Let's talk about it. Let's frame it as user acquisition. Then there comes engagement. Now, engagement is okay. I see I see Instagram stories. I engage with it, but I do not engage with it enough. And there could be multiple reasons for it. The first reason is, let's say, I do not I do not find the content very appealing. I find the content spammy. There's a lot of things, and I'm sort of overwhelmed and things like that. Monetization. Now, I've also seen that there are ads in stories, so that is already one way that where Instagram is already monetizing. Another way could be, let's say, you know what, let me think of getting rid of ads, which essentially means that getting rid of ads in stories, reels, posts everywhere. And that would be another way of monetization. Cool. Okay. Now, more or less talking about, given that we are more or less talking about improving Instagram stories, I would not consider, uh, I would consider engagement as the primary goal, because there is already like a huge user base. So let's prioritize engagement. And here, why? First reason would be already a huge user base. So this is the total addressable market. Then there is growth. So I mean the users are also growing on Instagram. Users are growing on Instagram. So stories is critical aspect of Instagram, of building an active Instagram community. So growth is check. And then finally, it's about the addressable market, the growth, and what is the reach for the addressable market? Okay, what is this about? Again, I think this is what it is. Stories is a critical part. Stories is a critical part. So the reach for that addressable market is obviously going to be huge. So the reach is high because stories is a top feature on Instagram. Okay. Why not acquisition or monetization? Hmm. Why not acquisition or monetization? Okay. Acquisition. Now stories is already on top of the Instagram landing page. So my assumption here would be that if I'm an Instagram user, there is a low probability that I have not interacted with Instagram stories. And here, user acquisition, this is how I'm defining it. User acquisition would technically mean that I'm an Instagram user, I'm interacting with everything, posts, reels, messages, etc. But I'm not interacting with stories. I have never interacted with stories. So I would assume that the addressable market, um, not necessarily, yeah, the addressable market, which is essentially the users that are on Instagram but have never touched Instagram stories, would be low. So the TAM for acquisition is low, and this is an assumption. And how am I framing it? This is basically the users on Instagram but never touched stories. My assumption is that they are less. Now, why not monetization? So let's actually break it down. Why not monetization? Okay, let's think. Monetization, there is ads. There's already ads. So Instagram stories are already being monetized, but there is a better way of actually monetizing it, which would become reels or posts. Now, there could be like a subscription model to get rid of ads, but again, doesn't seem like doesn't seem like a problem or a goal that we should be setting at the moment, because there are the target addressable market for the engagement seems way higher. That, okay, there could be problems that I could tackle. There could be ways that I could improve my engagement, and once the engagement has reached to a considerable level or expectation from a company perspective, then I can actually pivot my focus towards monetization. Okay, so mm, 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 mm. So I would say that it is ads exists. Second, the user base or the TAM is lower in comparison to reels, posts, reels and posts. Um, the users are definitely growing, but the user, because I mean, here we are, it's non-follower plus follower, but in stories is only followers. I think these are the prominent reasons why we should not go with monetization. So yeah, eventually let's fix that. We are going to focus on engagement for the purpose of this discussion. Now, mission. Now, Facebook or Meta's mission is to build like a community, build a community, leverage it, and just uh, leverage the power of the community and bring everyone together. Build a community, bring everyone together. Okay, now engagement. Now, when we are talking about engagement, we are definitely saying that the viewers and the creators are going to engage more. They're going to interact with each other a bit more, which essentially is very well tied with building a community and bringing everyone together. So, stories, engagement, all about bringing creators and viewers interact with each other, and that is aligned with Meta's mission. Okay, now let's go and start talking about the users. So I think we have been speaking about creators and viewers. And then within creators, there could be, you know, completely new creators. Then there would be occasional ones. And there are these frequent or so-called influencers. On the viewer side, I would say that new is not necessarily a segment. I would keep it as occasional and then frequent. So I know um, the occasional users, occasional viewers of stories, the frequent viewers of stories, and I could actually segment my users into these buckets. Mhm. Okay. So when we're talking about engagement, what what sort of engagement uh, or which user do we want to prioritize and why to improve the engagement? Let's think. Which user segment to prioritize given the goal is engagement? Okay. So if I'm a viewer, why do I not engage with, why do I not engage with Instagram stories? Okay. No, why do I not engage with Instagram stories is not the right question. I should actually think of where would I benefit more? Is supply a problem or is demand a problem? Supply supply could be a problem. So supply is more in the lines of um, I just want to create better reels, get better engagement, and that's all. But in demand, the stories are spammy. Mhm. Okay, let's think. Viewers, occasional, frequent. I want to improve engagement. Improve engagement. How do I get engagement? Hmm. In viewers, obviously, occasional is the larger base. Okay, so let's actually focus on uh, occasional viewers uh, as the prioritized user base to improve engagement. The reason would be that my assumption is that like I'm a user of Instagram stories and I honestly do not look at the stories in the way I should be looking at or in the way that Meta wants me to look at it. So I would either look at the first few stories and scroll through all of the stories because there is a lot of spam. There is an overflow of all of these stories, eventually meaning that either I'm interacting very less, interacting very less, um, interacting in the way that I should not be doing, like, just fast swipes, essentially, fast swipes, not looking, or totally ignoring. So basically, this is churn. Um, why is this important is because engagement is all about engagement is definitely all about the followers. And my assumption is that there would be a less than a 50 percentage user base that are actually genuinely interacting with Instagram stories. So there is like a lot of legroom to cover. So if I say that, let's say um, 65 or let's say 70% of the occasional viewers are not engaging, this is like a huge opportunity. And where occasional users themselves, occasional viewers are, let's say, how many the daily active users would Instagram have? Let's assume 1 billion because I think LinkedIn has 1 billion users. I would assume that Instagram also has something on similar lines. And if I say that the viewers are occasional and frequent, I'd probably keep, no, 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 1 second, 1 second. So if the viewers are 1 billion, occasional IG and frequent IG, then here it would be occasional IG, occasional stories, frequent stories, frequent IG, I would probably say that is going on 40%, 60%, and in this occasional, let's say this is 80% or even 60%, 40%, 50%, 50%. So what's happening here is that it's 0.24. This is 0.24 plus 0.3. So this is 0.54, 0.54 billion total. I think this is a very huge user base that we can target. Obviously, there is the supply side of things where creators can also engage more, but let's focus on the frequent users first. Okay, so as an occasional stories viewer, I I find the content very spammy or overwhelming. I do not relate to everything. I do not relate to everything. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, my mood, uh, so it should be from close friends or something like that. Close friends or people I want to know more about, not necessarily everyone. I find the content very spammy. It's very overwhelming. No, 1 second. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of stories. Cool. The second one is I do not relate to everything. Cool. I'm actually thinking whether it's mutually exclusive. 1 second. Let's think again. So I would say I find the content very overwhelming or spammy. Yes, that's true. I I don't find the content relevant. I don't find relevant content. And then, so I would say something like this. Here it's overwhelming. Here it's I don't find the relevant content. And I don't find the content engaging enough. Like it's not appealing. Okay. So let's think of the pain point. And here we would talk about pain. Then we will talk about prevalence and addressability. Mhm. No, um, because I find the content very overwhelming, I'm not interacting with it. I think the problem is not about, hmm, let's think. Obviously, there's this engaging content. Like first, it should be relevant, then it should become engaging. Engaging is all about like bringing major upticks into quality, giving tips and things like that. So I would assume that overwhelm being overwhelmed with the content and not making it relevant is the core of the problem. I think so. Not finding relevant content is the biggest bottleneck. Uh, Here the pain is, it's painful. It just gets overwhelming. Um, it's prevalent, and I think we can address it very well. So let's actually go for this one. Um, Prioritized. Why not others? Because overwhelming is more about, it's more like a consequence of relevant content. So if I make the content relevant, um, I think overwhelming would not become a problem, because since I'm focusing on relevance, um, it's not going to be the case that I am finding content from thousand different creators relevant to me, and that too in my followed user base. So overwhelming is something which I would focus on later. Yes, there could be like a possibility where the content becomes overwhelming because there's a lot of supply. But I assume that there is also going to be like a supply problem, because there are these occasional creators that do not necessarily know how to create the best content, how to actually create stories in the best way possible. So my understanding would be that um, relevant content is the bigger picture. Once I make the content relevant, the level of overwhelming the content is becomes lesser. And if there is still a problem of overwhelming, the content being overwhelming, I would specifically target overwhelming as a different problem later. But I assume that relevant content is obviously going to solve the problem of being overwhelming automatically. Similarly, with engaging and appealing, if the content becomes engaging and appealing, I would assume that the creators are obviously smart enough to create engaging content, because they would also prefer engagement. But at the same time, we could also help creators by some tools so that they can create better engaging content. So that is also a problem which would be mitigated by creating relevant content, but at the same time, it has to be solved on the supply side or the creator side to make the content more engaging. So this is why I would like to prioritize not finding relevant content as the biggest problem statement. Okay, what can we do? Um, Not finding relevant content. Let's think. You know, give me an option to choose what content I like versus not like. Or let's say what um, people I'm interested in versus not. I think that would be a good starting point. Um, Understand the relevance based on my interactions. For example, swipe fast, not viewed at all. Um, Even patterns such as number of stories and churn behavior, that is going to be interesting. um, Likes, um, shares, comments, DMs. So I think you have to look at my behavior in terms of understanding the relevance itself. What else? Mm-mm-mm. Give me an option to choose. So in a hard code way, I choose it. In a smart way, you detect it. What else could I do? Customize stories based on reels and post interactions. I think this is going to be cool. Feed reels and posts. So whatever I'm interacting with on the other line has to be somewhere on similar lines. Okay, okay. But mm-mm. Mm-mm. What other things can we do? And here we could also bring in measures to motivate engagement. Measures to motivate engagement to say that we will make it more relevant for you. Well, even provide suggestions to creators that users are interested in this next topic. Why not? If the demand is this, creators apply for it. Hmm, generative text, feedback, or AR/VR feedback. Why not? This is my moonshot. Okay. So the first one, give me an option to choose what content I like versus not like. I think this is pretty, this would be low effort and definitely high impact, moderate to high impact. And in fact, I would say high impact because I mean, automatically get to know what the user is interested in. But then relevance. Now this is going to be a moderate effort because I can actually leverage existing data science models that Meta might have or Instagram might have to understand interactions, churn behavior, and then even try to understand the relevance of stories content based on my interactions. It is going to be a high impact and to be honest, it is going to be a higher impact than step number one. The next one, I think this is more on the lines of this is more on the lines of uh, solution number two, based on feeds, reels, and post interactions with the point here is that because stories is only restricted to the people I follow, I can also create like a good circle of actually making sure that I follow more people. Make sure that you follow more people to get relevant content, or expand the stories user base to, yeah, I think let's stick to followers and actually increase the followers. This is going to be a huge perk for creators as well. Now, suggestions to creators, because there could be a possible gap between what creators create, let's say my friends, etc., what they create versus what I want. Um, so there could be a potential, there could be a potential mechanism wherein the creators are getting some feedback on what is trending. So trending topics, or even like live feedback, a synthesized live feedback from multiple users created as like, just one avatar, or like a generative text feedback that, what, this is what is happening in the world today. Would you be interested in creating stories? And then there could be like a different funnel of actually suggesting template content of stories that Instagram could help creators create better stories. So I think that is a solution for later, but I think suggestions can definitely be interesting. Now, I would say that this is more of a moonshot idea. So we need to obviously explore whether this is going to help us in terms of impact. So impact, I would say, to be assessed, but effort would be high effort. And that is why I would say that let's study the impact and let's obviously understand the feasibility of this moonshot idea to figure out what can we do. So if I were to prioritize the solution, I would definitely begin with this solution number one, and then eventually solution number two as a phased project. Cool. All right. Success matrix. Now, our goal was to improve the engagement of occasional viewers on Instagram stories. So how do I check the engagement? Now, engagement is all about interactions. So my North Star here would be something like a daily active users, or a weekly active user. And then tracking matrix would become interactions, which would be all related to swiping, like, share, DMs. Let's check the churn pretty importantly. Let's check the churn. In fact, I would say that guardrail is something that I can actually check the churn behavior. Swipe fast. Percentage stories viewed. Time spent on stories. Percentage time spent on stories. I would actually make it like this. Okay, cool. Risks. What potential risks do we foresee here? The solution one that we discussed, where we are asking for options, solution one can be asking too much from users. It could also be being too rigid on what they provide as inputs, because their moods can change. Their mood can possibly change. So the behavior would also, like the relevance would also change over time. Relevance can change over time. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. Oh, I think we are going to target it with solution number two, but I think the first immediate way of asking for inputs from users is going to be helpful. Obviously, there's a risk. Um, Now, because we are making, there's this guardrail matrix that actually we should be checking where um, are we going to reduce stories viewed for certain creators by making the algorithm more relevant or specific. So this is something that we need to check. And I think that would be it. Okay. So in summary, we were tasked with improving Instagram stories. And specifically within the improvement, we focused on engagement as our goal. It tied very well with the mission of Meta. We looked at different user segments, creators and viewers. We prioritized the viewers, and within them, we specifically targeted occasional viewers. We came up with multiple pain points, prioritized relevant content as the biggest pain point. Um, Looked at potential solutions, asking for inputs from users, making creating like a data science model to understand the interactions and making the content more relevant, and even a moonshot idea wherein we can provide some generative text feedback or AR/VR feedback for trending content on Instagram. Looked at the success matrix, risks, and finally we close this case with a potential solution. Cool. Okay, so I think it's this was a good case. And there could also be an aspect of creators where they go to the app, create a story draft, and they modify things and they publish things. The pain point could be how to use it, customize it for location, theme, trend. Okay, location, theme, trend, how users are doing, how others are doing it. So as a creator, I would get to know what's happening in my location, what's the trend, how others are doing it. Solutions could be just give a tutorial, pick the best trends based on location, edit, sounds, engagement hacks. I think the viewer part makes more sense. Let's look at this. IG already has a large user base, so the team would not need to look into acquiring more people, but enabling new features for users to be more excited, which eventually would result in more people coming back more often. Facebook as a company strives to connect more people and help them have an amazing experience through interactions with their friends. This is the basic principle on which Facebook's various apps work on. So I would aim to build this feature with the overall vision of the company to connect users and enable them to be excited when they use our app or a feature. Overall structure, discuss the customer segments, pain points, prioritize, brainstorm solutions, talk about how could we design the MVP, go-to-market, and success matrix. Like to focus on the customer segments, creators, consumers, people that are active on the platform, create stories 2 to 5 times per week, They want to think of new ways to impress their friends and find inspiration from other popular stories. I think this is a good way of describing creators. Is some persona vibe. People that are not actively creating stories but consume a whole lot, bored of seeing the same kind of stories every day. Hmm. Although the second user feeling of a potential higher user base, I think if we can build features with having creators in mind, the success of the feature would lead to virality, which would eventually help the stickiness of the consumers to the platform. Besides, building new exciting features for a company like IG gives us an opportunity. Okay, fair enough. Right. Based on your current location, the user gets a mashup of some of the popular stories from around that same location from other users. When you are in the Grand Canyon, you could get a mashup of the 10 popular stories in the last 2 months from users who visited the Grand Canyon as well. The algorithm should be able to use an API that identifies the Grand Canyon picture in the background and could perhaps point to which location at the. Okay. Because edit your story. A lot of people spend too much time on editing, creating memes. Okay, ML would understand what the user typically likes to post as a story, from simple pics with text edits to quick meme stories. Okay, so editing your stories, mashup of the most popular stories. Yeah, in terms of the pandemic, we could create wish I was there feature. Okay. Use existing popular pics of a destination and superimpose the person's image to create a, for example, I wanted to be in the Mexico this fall, but since I cannot go due to all the restrictions, I could post a story of how I could be lying on a beach. Okay, interesting. So mashup, 1 second. Mashup of stories slash videos. Second, ML to edit stories. Third, AR VR to picturize myself in a place. Okay. The mashup story seems like a great idea for creators to get some inspiration and create some great. However, we need to comprehensively test the feature to make sure it is working appropriately. For example, we could run into problems such as the API not being able to accurately distinguish between similar looking places such as beaches, bars, restaurants. This could lead to a lot of confusion. Also, not every user would have their GPS on. So, okay. Also seems a little complex. One of the key things is to help the user understand the feature better. Although also the ML can get very complex for us to accurately develop, test, ship, take a long time. Also, there might be some privacy issues that people may be concerned about. IG trying to look into your personal gallery of pics to suggest ready-made stories. Users could be turned off by this. Use the existing. Okay, understood. Hmm. One way to bring out their creativity. Recently, avatar option where users can post their avatar to their friends. The way I'm seeing this feature is in two folds. You could you could create your avatars on publicly available pics of a beach in the Bahamas riding a unicorn. In order to make it even more convenient, the user could allow IG to use their past images to be superimposed on this new image. You could take a pic of yourself lying on the floor, and as you could see, superimpose Photoshop. Chilling on a beach, which versus reality. Okay, timer is done, but let's finalize this. I know there are a few solutions within the same solution that I just thought, but I wanted to bring out these ideas as well. I really like the avatar idea. We already have this tech and we could use this to add a bit of fun to stories. This would tie up nicely with the overall vision of engaging with new users, with new features, and also give another reason for other customer segments. I could see us having celebrities and influencers promote this feature as well. Like I'm wishing they could be on the same instead of playing PlayStation. Success matrix, acquisition number of features, daily active users, number of users watching these stories. Are the users that watch these stories also converting? How many times on average have you used the feature? Retention. Okay. So some feedback that I can hear for users. Describe user segments with some persona, and always mention what you are choosing and why, and what you are not choosing and why. Uh, Basically, the trade-offs. Trade-offs is probably going to be pretty important. Okay, sounds good. All right, we can take a break and we can come back to another product design question pretty soon.